Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod, the first mock draft of the Money Down Pod podcast here. I am Kayvon and Shawn. That is Shawn White. Follow Shawn on Twitter at DumpsterFireFan. Follow me at Kayvon_sports. Follow the Money Down Pod at Money Down Pod on Twitter. Let us know your reactions to this one. We really want to hear it. It's our first mock draft. We will be doing plenty of these. How it's going to work is Shawn's going to have the odd numbers. I'm going to have the even numbers. He's going to do one pick. I'm going to do a pick, and we're going to go back and forth. We're going to debate. Do we like it? Do we love it? Do we hate it? Do we despise it? Whatever it is. And then we want to hear from you guys. Do you like the player that we put on your team? Okay. Now, listen, there's a couple of ways people do mock drafts. So, Shawn, I want to get this out of the way first before we start, because a lot of people do mock drafts based on what they believe is going to happen there, and then people do it based on what they would do if they are the GM of this team. So let the fans know, Shawn, how you are going to be making these picks. Is it based off of if you're the GM of the Jaguars at number one, you're taking this guy, or is it based off of you believe the Jaguars should or will take this guy?
Yeah, so right now I think it's too early to definitively say whether a team is going to take someone or not, especially before the combine, especially before some of these coaching staffs aren't even fully hired, and it's really hard to do it without free agency. So I think this is going to be more of my opinion, what I would do right now. I think that's kind of where I'm going to lean on this, with a little bit of keeping in mind scheme fit and coaching and stuff like that. I'm not going to throw something off the wall that a team definitely wouldn't do. Like, I'm not putting quarterbacks where quarterbacks are already in place there and stuff like that. But I am going to – it's kind of going to be my opinion right now to start with, because we're so early in the process.
Yep. Same with me exactly. There will be picks, and I'll mention that when it happens, where I'm going to say I believe a team is going to do this here, because some of these teams, Shawn's right. It's really hard to know what's going to happen. But there's also teams where we can sit here right now and say, okay, this team for sure as hell needs this position, this position, this position. So I'll be saying I really believe this team is going to go this direction for it. And I like that, or I don't like that, whatever. So I'll mention when I'm kind of doing it based on what I believe a team will do, but most of these picks are going to be based off of how I feel and what's going to happen from there. So without further ado, let's get it started. First ever mock draft, Money Down Pod. Shawn White, you are on the board with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which just so happens to be your team, if anybody did not know somehow that by now. Shawn, without further ado, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock.
All right. So we're used to being on the clock at number one here. We had Trevor Lawrence last year, so I think the Jags fans are kind of used to that. Here we go. So I kind of had to make a decision here between really the edge rushers or a top tackle. Both could be used on the Jags for sure. I know when we went over our top 15 players, I had Evan Neal number one, and I'm sure that's where Kayvon thought I was going, but actually I thought differently of it, and I'm actually going in a different direction on this. And it all has to do with the hiring of Doug Peterson, and the more film I've watched of this person, I think he's going to elevate more. I'm actually taking Iguanu for the NC State Wolfpack. Iguanu is going to be a zone blocking fiend, and the Jags are going to a zone blocking scheme. So I feel he fits that better. I think you can plug him in at right tackle. Maybe he even plays left. It's kind of going to be a cat battle between him and Walker Little on who's on that left and who's on that right side. But he's lab made for a zone blocking scheme. I think he fits the offensive line perfectly. And I think it's that Lane Johnson type athletic ability on the right side that Doug Peterson would like to utilize with the Jags. So I love him at number one. It's going to be Iguanu for me, going number one to the Jags.
Yeah, so this, to me, I absolutely love this pick. What's funny about this pick is this. A lot of fans that are just not fully developed, like intense into this draft process, and any draft process, they just know the big names. They're going to look at this pick and say, are you kidding me? The Jaguars are going to go with Iguanu over, Evan Neal, everyone who says could be the best player in this draft, best tackle in this draft, all that stuff. But when you look at it based off of what Iguanu's done, kind of hidden in the shadows at NC State, and what you just said about Doug Peterson, I think it is a phenomenal pick for the Jaguars to go with Iguanu. That doesn't mean that I don't think Neal's a great pick there too. I think Neal's phenomenal there too. But I really like Iguanu, man. And I think Iguanu at the end of the day could be the best tackle in this draft above Neal too, no matter the scheme fits and all that stuff. I am someone that my girlfriend's parents are NC State season ticket holders. I've watched every NC State game. Iguanu is a bad man. And that is a perfect fit for Trevor Lawrence. Now, I want to hit on this before I go. Whether it's Iguanu or Neal, I think either one are an A-plus pick, where you start to go to A-minus. Now, I'm not going to say anything under A-minus because I think Kayvon Thibodeau is crazy amazing. Now, I think you might say lower than A-minus if they go Hutchinson, because I know you're not high on Hutchinson. But anything that is not an offensive player there that's going to protect Trevor Lawrence in Iguanu or Neal, to me, is a bad decision. Quickly, your thoughts on that before I go with you being the Jags fan.
Yes, for sure. I think you got to really build that O line up. You don't want a Joe Burrow getting sacked all the time situation, for sure. And the more time you give Trevor, the more he's able to create. We saw it with his recognition and cognition of things. Receivers just couldn't get open this year. But if you give him enough time, he's going to make a play. Another thing that I do want to point out here, if it was my decision, and this is a mock draft, so I'm not doing this, I'd trade back. And really, if I'm comfortable with Iguanu, one of the edge rushers, or Neal, I know you're not going to get the compensation that you did in years past because this draft isn't very strong up top. I'm not saying you go back and ask for someone's one next year. Yeah. I'm saying you maybe look at the Jets or the Giants and say, do you want to come up to one and give me your two? Something like that, because you're still guaranteed to get one of those players. We're going to discuss it here with the Lions and the Texans. They both have bookend tackles. They don't need either of these two tackles out there. So you're basically guaranteed one of these top two tackles at 4 if you still want to go that way. So I think the smart move is actually to go back and get a second-round pick for it, even though the trade value doesn't match the years past. But if we're staying at number 1 where it's a mock draft, I agree. You've got to help Trevor out. And you can help Trevor out in multiple ways, not just wide receivers, but with the offensive tackle to give him more time. And Iguanu just fits the scheme better now that Peterson's hired. I like what I've seen him zone blocking. Completely agree. Got to help Trevor out. I'd love to trade back and do it. But at 1, I like sticking there and taking either one as well.
Yeah, great pick. So the first pick taken, Jacksonville Jaguars select Iguanu out of NC State, Akim Iguanu, offensive tackle. Now let's go to Detroit, the team you just mentioned. Look, Detroit, to me, they're while watching and deciding what to do with the draft here, to me, the position of needs specifically are edge. They need a quarterback eventually, and they need a wide receiver. Now, we have to remember this about the Lions. They have 2 picks in the first round. They have the number 32 pick from the Rams. We could maybe see them go with a quarterback there. In my opinion, they're not going with a quarterback at number 2. I think that would be bizarre with this class. So this is one of those picks, as I just mentioned, where I am going to tell you what I believe the Lions are going to do. And I think they're going to take Aiden Hutchinson at number 2. I would not take Aiden Hutchinson. But because of the situation, I have to go for this pick of what I think is going to happen, because this is one of those picks that I said before where I think you can almost book Hutchinson in. I think Kayvon Thibodeau still has a shot here, but I think because Hutchinson is the hometown man, I think he has that mean and nastiness that the head coach Dan Campbell wants. And I think that's really important in this. You gotta look into those type of things. The fans are going to want Hutchinson, and Campbell's going to want Hutchinson. And because of that, I think the Detroit Lions select Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, edge, number 2 overall.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it that he's one of the top edges in the draft. Again, I've got to see him at the combine before I really make a definitive point on him, because on film watching him, I don't feel he's that explosive. I know other people disagree. It's literally like a weird take where people are seeing different things with him. So I can't wait for the combine numbers to actually settle that a little bit. If I was them, I'd take Thibodeau between the 2 of them, but I agree you have the Michigan connection, so you never really know. But that's a solid pick, either one. They're not going to take a tackle because they have Decker and Sewell there. So unless they throw a wild card out there and take some secondary player, which I just don't see Dan Campbell doing, he's going to want to build through the trenches. It's going to be one of these 2 edge rushers, and Hutchinson's a solid pick there. So I kind of agree with that as well. Moving on to the Texans.
Real quick, it's one of the two edge rushers. I am with you. I would take Kayvon. If I'm the GM of the Lions, I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau. And, the draft to me the combine to me is not going to change anything about Hutchinson. I'm not as down on him as you are, but I would take Kayvon Thibodeau. But just everything I said, I would be shocked at this point unless Hutchinson bombs at the combine. If Hutchinson didn't go to the Lions. Go ahead, move on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll probably get up to where you are with Hutchinson if he performs well at the combine. If you know what I'm saying, he would be more in line with Thibodeau for me. But right now, Thibodeau's head and shoulders ahead of him, in my opinion. Which, going to number 3 with the Texans, I've got them taking Thibodeau. They need edge rush help. That's another thing that's going to depend as well. If they, for some reason, trade Tunsil, then the offensive tackle is going to be in play. But right now, they have Titus Howard on one end, Tunsil on the other. Unless they're going to throw a curveball and take Kyle Hamilton or one of the corners, which I don't really see that happening. I think they're going to take Thibodeau right there, and it's going to be Kayvon Thibodeau at 3 just to help that edge rush help they need with the Texans.
Yeah, so I love the pick there. I think Thibodeau at number 3 at this point is a steal. To be honest with you, I think the Texans are trading this pick, and I think the Texans should trade this pick. I think they have so many needs that they should trade down and get as many picks as possible. So if I'm the Texans, and we're obviously not incorporating this in the draft, I am trading down. But if you're staying put, Kayvon Thibodeau is the best player for them to take. The best way to build a team, in my opinion, other than getting a franchise quarterback, is doing it in the trenches. And that's a big, big start right there with Kayvon Thibodeau. So really like that pick there. Number 4 is the New York Jets. Now, the Jets to me are fascinating, okay, because there's a couple ways I was going to go here. I was going to go with Iguanu. I know that they've drafted a lot of offensive linemen lately, but I just think that they need to keep hitting it on. And with the uncertainty of what we've kind of seen lately with Mekhi Becton and with his injuries and all that stuff, was going to go with Iguanu. Since you took him off the board, I will go with Evan Neal, the tackle, at number 4 for the New York Jets.
Yeah, a solid pick right there. You can't go wrong with Evan Neal. Again, I believe Evan Neal is probably the best, most polished blocker in the draft. Again, Iguanu at number 1 was more of a scheme fit decision on my part with the athleticism and traits. Neal's going to be a big guy, and if you have Becton in him, the thing with the Jets is they really like Fant as well, so they would have the 3 tackle thing. But they are down on Becton, so you could see them maybe trading Mekhi Becton if he comes in out of shape again. You never know with that situation. Neal there. Also, that's why I think the Jets are a sneaky one to trade up to 1 if they just have to give up a 2, because I believe they want one of those 2 edge rushers really bad at 4. So I think they're a sneaky one to come up and maybe take that and flip with the Texans as well, because I believe they do want one of those edge rushers. But with the way this draft is falling into place with ours, you can't go wrong with Neal. I think that's a nightmare scenario for the Giants, though, because I think the Giants really want one of the top 2 tackles as well. Yeah. So there's someone you can look at to trade up. But the way we're doing this draft right here, back and forth, I have the Giants up next. And I'm going to have to take Charles Cross, the other offensive tackle from Mississippi State, because they have to have offensive line help, and they need it at right tackle, especially if they're going to build around Daniel Jones, like the owner has clearly stated that he's going to do. They have 4 receivers out there. They have Saquon. They need offensive line help. They're going to have to take the best available there. So Charles Cross is the pick at 5 for me.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail there. I think that they are upset that they didn't Iguanu or Neal. That's who they wanted. And because they still want that offensive lineman so bad, they're going to take Cross. Look, I like Cross. I think it worries me a little bit because they might be settling a bit just so that they can get that offensive tackle. If I'm the Giants at this point, I might look at going to Kyle Hamilton or something to spice it up a little bit and fix that secondary a little bit more. But you can't go wrong if they're trying to build up Daniel Jones. You can't go wrong with offensive tackle Charles Cross there.
So one thing on that too, in that situation, I believe Cross is in play at 6 with the Panthers, so that's why they have to take him at 5.
Yes.
If I'm being honest with that, that's why the pick is there.
I agree. I think Cross would definitely be in play at the Panthers. Now, this is when things start to really get interesting for me, right? Because what I did for this draft is I had my first pick and then my secondary pick just in case they got taken. And for the Panthers, my first pick was Iguanu, and my second pick was Cross because I thought Neal was going to be gone. I thought Iguanu might be gone, and then Cross would be third. So at this point, the Panthers have to start scrambling, a.k.a. Kayvon. I don't think that they go defensive player at all. I honestly think the Panthers defense is really good. Like I think the Panthers defense could be great, and they could get greedy a little bit and decide to take an edge rusher to be even better at defense. But now that we're looking here and saying, what do they do? Do they go quarterback? I don't think they're going to go quarterback. I think that they just take the best player available. And I think that they do end up going Kyle Hamilton, safety, out of Notre Dame. I think that they're pissed about this, though, Shawn. I don't think that they wanted this out. I think that they wanted an offensive lineman really, really bad. But I don't think that they're going to reach. Maybe they trade back at this point if Cross, Iguanu, and Neal are all off. But if they're all off, to me, the best possible thing the Panthers could do is take the best player available. And to me, that's hands down at this point. I think Kyle Hamilton's the best player available in the draft.
Completely agree. I feel like if they're in this situation that they would look to trade down and then maybe look at quarterbacks after that. But if they're going to be there at 6, can't go wrong with Hamilton as a consolation prize. I mean, if they sign Hassan Reddick back, they have Reddick and Burns on the edges. Shaq Thompson's still there in the middle. Then you have Chin and Hamilton at your safeties. You have a dynamic defense right there. So understand the Hamilton pick. It's probably a situation they really don't want to be in. Again, the way this mock is kind of falling, a lot of teams are getting screwed on what they don't want to happen.
Yes.
So, I mean, and this happens in drafts like this where it's not top-tier blue-chip talent throughout the draft. It's more of a deep draft. So these teams up top are kind of getting screwed over like that. So that leads me back to number 7, which is the Giants again, actually. So it's kind of funny. I have them at 5 and I have them at 7. We've kind of taken care of some of the O-line. Now let's really go into some things they also need. They need some edge help, but they also need some corner help. So that's somewhere I feel like they could look at. You look at the top corners available. You have Sauce Gardner and you have Stingley, and then the edges are kind of down to that 3rd and 4th best. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe they take Sauce Gardner right here to kind of press up, do some press man coverage out there. You got Dayball and Shane coming over from Buffalo. They're used to having Tre'Davious White out there on their defense. They like a number 1 man-to-man corner. Give me Sauce Gardner at 7 for the Giants.
Dang, that's a great pick for the Giants right there, man. That is a sneaky pick that I was going to have coming up here shortly, but that's a really, really good pick by the Giants. You pair Cross and then you get Sauce Gardner, who in my opinion is the best cornerback in this draft. The Giants are already looking really well with that with those 2 picks right there, which brings me to my Atlanta Falcons at number 8. And I was going to go Sauce Gardner at number 8. I love the idea of Gardner and Terrell paired up next to each other in the back there. I think that's a lockdown right there. So you look and you say, okay, where do they go from here? They need edge help. They need cornerback help. They really need all type of safety help. I would have gone, my top 2 picks for this were Kyle Hamilton and Gardner. Both of those are gone. I honestly think at this point, the Falcons would look at trading down and gathering more picks. I believe that's what would happen. Since that's not there and both of them are gone, I honestly think that they might go wide receiver. And I'm going to go wide receiver, and I'm going to pick Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. He's my favorite receiver. I do not think that the Falcons wanted to do this exactly. I think that maybe they would look at David Ojabo. I think that's someone they would look at there. I would not like that pick. I think you could. I just don't like him that high at number 8. I'm okay with a wide receiver at number 8, though, and Treylon Burks. I like that idea. If Hamilton and Gardner are gone, and obviously the 2 edge rushers in Hutchinson and Thibodeau, I'm totally fine with going with the wide receiver, Treylon Burks.
Yeah, completely understand the pick. Matt Ryan plays best when he has receivers to throw to, and he had absolutely no weapons once Ridley did not come back to play this year.
Yeah.
You need to replace that production out there. And Burks is a number 1 receiver, a true X. Matt Ryan always threw to Julio Jones out there. You really like the comparison there. Able to go get jump balls, able to outrun people, break tackles. Treylon Burks is a match made in heaven for the Falcons if they do take him there. Smart pick. I know you had other people ahead of that as well, which would fit, but the wide receiver's got to be addressed. Love the pick of Burks there at 8. For number 9, I have the Broncos. And I'm really torn here with the Broncos between edge rusher and taking the middle linebacker Devin Lloyd. So it's really a Jabo or Lloyd for me, but I think I'm going to have to go with Lloyd in this one because I think they're going to use a nice anchor in the middle of the field right there to go with their elite safety help and their elite corners that they have going on with Surtain out there. So, yeah, give me Devin Lloyd out in the middle of the defense for the Broncos. Chubb will still rush off the edge. I think they might can get a deep edge rusher in the second or third round to help that out. And on top of that, with the offseason, we never know. This pick might be going to the Packers for all we know, so we got to keep in mind on that.
No doubt. It's a great pick. Look, this is what I like to call getting greedy. Now, the Broncos do need help at linebacker, but what I mean by getting greedy is that defense is really good. And a lot of people will sit there and say, you have to go offense. You have to go offense. But when you're sitting there, what offensive player are you going to take? Maybe their wide receivers are fine. There's not an offensive tackle. I do think they need to shore up their tackle position, but there's not a tackle that I would take this high. So because of that, I love the pick at Lloyd. I think that's the safest pick. I think that's where you go, which brings us to number 10, where we have the New York Jets back up at the clock. Now, with their first pick, they took – well, who did they take? They took Evan Neal, right? Mm-hmm. Yep, Evan Neal with their first pick. So they already got an offensive tackle filled there. Where are they going to go? In my opinion, I believe they continue to go with the offensive position. And I think at number 10, they take Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver. Garrett Wilson is Shawn's favorite wide receiver in this draft. He's one of my favorite. He's not my top one. I just think he brings a dynamic to this team that could be very interesting, that could bring a lot more for Zach Wilson, who has a really good arm. He can throw the ball, and I think if they use Garrett Wilson well, that he could be a big impact player on this team. They already have Elijah Moore. They have Corey Davis. Because they already have a couple of receivers, I like Garrett Wilson to kind of be the icing on the cake in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I completely agree with taking the wide receiver there. I thought you were going to go Drake London, to be honest.
I thought about it.
Because they kind of have Zach Wilson out there, maybe take a bigger receiver, but they do have Mims and Corey Davis, so I understand the Wilson pick right there as well.
Yep,
makes sense right there. I mean, it's got to be a receiver.
We kind of talked about this before, me and you. If it's a team that doesn't, like the Falcons, for instance, if Ridley's gone and all that stuff, for the Falcons, I'm more looking at Burks and London. For teams that have a couple guys already, I like Wilson to be the icing on the cake, and that's why I went with Wilson.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. This next pick for me, I got to be honest, this is one that's going to struggle, and this is one that I really need free agency to answer. Yeah. I need to know if the Commanders are going to get a quarterback in free agency or not. Yeah. That's really what this is going to come down to, because if they don't have a quarterback, you can almost pencil in they're probably going to reach for one here, and that's just my opinion.
It's their biggest need by far.
Yeah. But, again, I've got to wait for free agencies to come out. So I just can't really put them with a quarterback right now, in my opinion. I'm just not solid on it. So I'm going to kind of throw a little bit of these two names out there. They're going to lose Scherf in free agency, the guard. So they're going to need to help their interior. You got Kenyon Green. You have Zion Johnson. Probably pick between the best two. I'm going to go with Kenyon Green here just because I like him as a prospect a little bit better. Not a sexy pick. It's a guard. Maybe you could see them going corner. Maybe if they love Stingley, that's a very distinct possibility as well. But right now, I'm going to go Kenyon Green just because they're going to need to replace Scherf in free agency for sure. And I don't know what they're going to do for quarterback yet. This is a pick that's going to get a lot more clarity as time goes on.
Yeah, I like the pick. I 1,000% would go Kenny Pickett here. Again, unless something changes in free agency, and it's a fair point by you, it's hard to make that assumption until we see what happens. But just putting 2 and 2 together, not knowing what's going to happen, the Washington Commanders, they got to get a quarterback. I would go Kenny Pickett, but I do like Green. I do think he's the next best offensive tackle on the board. Which brings us to number 12, the Minnesota Vikings. To me, this is a fascinating team, a team that I think is really good, a team that I think has the chance to win now if everything goes well with Kevin O'Connell. So you have a new head coach who's offensive. But a lot of the struggle to me was from the defensive side of the ball. I think that they go David Ojabo edge here. I think that they need some help across the edge. Again, I am not as high on Ajobo as a lot of other people. That's why I would not put him at 8 at the Falcons, which is where I've seen. But when he falls down to 12 here, I think that's a good place for him to be. I like him going to the Vikings at 12.
I'm high on Ojabo for sure. That's actually one of my higher end players, in my opinion. I think he's my fourth edge. I like him a lot. I think he flashes a lot more than Hutchinson sometimes on film, which I know is sacrilege to say to a lot of people, but that's the truth on my end for me. When I watched him, I really enjoyed his flashes in the backfield. He definitely has more athleticism, in my opinion. So I love that pick there at 12. I think they could also lean and look at corner, Stingley being there as well. They definitely need corner help. So it wouldn't shock me if they went cornerback too.
Yep.
That's another team that I don't think they're in love with Cousins, so that's going to be fun to see what they do in the offseason as well. But moving on to 13, I think the Browns are all out and out receiver no matter what. That's my opinion on it. I think they probably are sad that Burks is gone and that Wilson's gone, because I had them taking Wilson like when I pre-started this because I figured London would go. But I'm going to give them Drake London right now just to give them a number one receiver. I think they would probably prefer Wilson because I think he'd play more of that Y and Z receiver role for them, where Peoples-Jones will be the X. But I feel like you could probably move Peoples-Jones around a little bit too. So give me Drake London here at 13. They need all the receiver help they can get.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think Drake London, again, I told you he's my number 2 receiver behind Burks in this class. I love London. I think that's a great pick. And I think they have to go wide receiver here without a doubt. So really, really like that pick here, which brings me to number 14, the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, to me, could go a bunch of different ways with this pick. I think they need offensive line help. I think that they need cornerback help. I think they need edge help. I think that they need a lot of help. To me, though, I'm going to go with the tackle that I like a lot, and I'm going with Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa here at number 14 for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, I think that the Ravens decide, let's go back to what we did a couple years ago. Run the hell out of the football with our running backs, have one of the best lines in the league. And I love Trevor Penning, his size, his athleticism. He can play either the left or the right tackle from day one, in my opinion. Love Trevor Penning here.
Yeah, completely agree. Penning didn't really show at the Senior Bowl as much as I'd like to, but like it or not, he's solid, the number 4 tackle, and he's way above the next one that's available. I think you're probably not going to see another offensive tackle go until the second, unless it's in the late first, where someone at that late first just loves a player that they know they're not going to get at the late second. That's kind of where we're at on this offensive tackle class. It's really 3 ahead of the 4, and then 4 is far ahead of 5. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So I can't fault that pick at all, especially when it's someone that can really lean on in the run game. He's not going to get exposed in pass pro as much because you have Lamar back there. You have so many run plays. So I do like the fit there with Trevor Penning for sure. At 15, I've got my first of the 3 Eagles picks. It's kind of funny. I have 2 Eagles picks, and you have 1 Eagles pick.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably a great situation for Howie because he's going to want to build that O-line, D-line up. And it's perfect because probably the best player in the draft fell to him. And Kelsey, I feel like, is going to retire. So I'm going to give them Tyler Linderbaum at 15, the center.
Phenomenal pick.
Replace your great center at Kelsey that might be out of here. Again, if Kelsey stays, then I don't know if they take him. But if he's there at 15, Kelsey's gone, I think it's a plug and play. You put Tyler Linderbaum in and continue to road grade.
Phenomenal pick there. Great pick by the Eagles. I think that they now get a steal at center with Tyler Linderbaum. He could go much, much earlier, in my opinion. So really, really good pick by the Eagles there.